Target, Rafael Ibarra, alias El Silencio, last tracked on the outskirts of Culiacán, Sinaloa, Mexico. A high-value cartel strategist linked to 5 U.S. Delta Force fatalities, not in open firefights, but through calculated ambush patterns, IED corridors, delayed triggers, and compromised supply chains. Your orders had been clear: 2 targets at a single location. Eliminate both. You tracked them for hours, confirming movement patterns and locking positions. Then, the window opened. The first target stepped out into a clean line of sight, with stable wind and zero obstruction. You took the shot. Impact. Confirmed. But there was a second target. Ethan made the call. Now. You adjusted, controlled your breathing, and committed to the trigger press. But the shot missed. Not wide, not sloppy, just off by inches. Enough for the second target to step back into cover and disappear. You arrive at the range in boots that don't fit and expectations that weigh more than they should. Failure rate, 85%. Your first month isn't shooting, it's breathing. In, hold, out, hold, again, again. You learn the body is never still. Heartbeats shift barrels, breath moves impact points. So you learn the pause, that fragile stillness where the shot lives. Week 3, you notice him. Not because he's better, because he's quieter. Still, in a way that doesn't feel normal. Later, you hear his name, Ethan Cole. You don't become friends. You become aligned. Your breathing syncs. Your timing matches. Month 2, shooting. You miss. He adjusts 1 click. You improve. No words. Final test. 1,400 meters. Impact. You look at him. He already knew. Level 2. Iraq. Real war. Then comes deployment. Iraq, where heat, dust, and noise exist on top of a deeper silence. Your mission type is Overwatch and route security. You're positioned on a half-collapsed structure. Your spotter scope scans constantly. The laser rangefinder is ready. And your ballistic solver runs in the background. Then, over the radio, convoy moving in 2 mics. Ethan is beside you, calling wind for mirage distortion. Not guessing, reading. Soon, a target appears. Possible IED planter. But you don't shoot yet, because rules of engagement matter. Positive identification is required. Then Ethan whispers, "Wait, left hand." So you zoom in. And there it is. A detonator wire. Confirmed. You fire. Impact. And just like that, the convoy rolls through untouched. And no one ever knows you were there. Because that is the job. After that, missions evolve. Counter-sniper overwatch. Pattern of life surveillance. High-value target tracking. You don't just shoot. You observe. For hours. For days. You learn how people move. Before you decide whether they stop. Then comes a longer shot. 1,200 meters. Shifting wind. And still, you hit. A unit record. But even then, something small feels off. Because Ethan had already adjusted for the wind. Before it changed. And you assume it's just skill. Level 3. Canada. Snow. Silence. Isolation. Your mission now involves long-range interdiction and cross-border intel support. The snow absorbs sound. Visibility disappears without warning. You operate ahead of main units. Minimal communication, minimal support. At one point, you track a target for 19 hours straight. No movement, no talking, only breathing. Then Ethan speaks. Wind will drop in 20 seconds. And somehow, it does. Exactly. So you take the shot. 1,850 meters. Impact. Another record. But this time, you notice something different. He isn't calculating like you are. He's anticipating. Too precisely. Then at night, he steps away from position. His radio goes silent. And when he returns, it's like nothing happened. You register it, you remember it, but you don't act, because the missions keep succeeding. Level 4. Mexico. Rainforest Ops. Mission type: Anti-cartel overwatch, jungle recon, close-range elimination. Humidity distorts optics, rain masks sound, distances shrink. 150 meters feels like 15. This isn't long range anymore. This is personal. You're covering a DEA-linked extraction. Target emerges. You line the shot. Child enters frame. You abort instantly. Radio crackles. Why no shot? You don't respond. You glance at Ethan. That's when you see it. A flicker. Not concern, not relief. Frustration. Like something didn't go according to plan. Later, mission intel leaks. Extraction ambushed. But not fully. Just partially compromised. Enough damage, not total failure. That's when doubt begins. Level 5. The conspiracy. You stop thinking emotionally, and instead you think like a shooter, because emotion introduces error, and error gets people killed. So you go back, not to memories, but to data. Mission logs, shot timings, win calls, and recorded delays. And that's when one operation stands out, not because it failed, but because it didn't fully succeed. Target: Rafael Ibarra, alias El Silencio. Last tracked on the outskirts of Culiacán, Sinaloa, Mexico. A high-value cartel strategist linked to 5 U.S. Delta Force fatalities, not in open firefights, but through calculated ambush patterns, IED corridors, delayed triggers, and compromised supply chains. Your orders had been clear: 2 targets at a single location. Eliminate both. You track them for hours, confirming movement patterns and locking positions. Then, the window opened. The first target stepped out into a clean line of sight, with stable wind and zero obstruction. You took the shot. Impact. Confirmed. But there was a second target. Ethan made the call. Now. You adjusted, controlled your breathing, and committed to the trigger press. But the shot missed. Not wide, not sloppy, just off by inches. Enough for the second target to step back into cover and disappear. At the time, it felt like a minor error. Now, it doesn't, because that second target was Ibarra. Mission report logged. 1 confirmed, 1 escaped. 2 weeks later, a patrol unit moving through Mazatlan corridor routes walked into a coordinated ambush. 5 casualties borne by American troops. Same method, same precision. Ibarra. And suddenly, that moment reframes itself. Not a bad shot, not bad timing. A controlled outcome. You go further back. Iraq overwatch grids, Canadian long-range ops, Mexican jungle rotations. Every delay, every hesitation, every shot that almost happened begins to align. Not failure, selection. Some targets are removed, others are deliberately preserved. And that's when it hits you. You weren't just taking shots, you were being positioned, guided, used. So you dig deeper, off-record and quietly. Encrypted bursts, unregistered frequencies, and movement overlaps that never make official logs. And always, Ethan. Never obvious, never direct, but always there. Close enough to influence, far enough to deny. Then the final connection forms. Cartel logistics in Sinaloa. Intermediaries moving through Afghan transit channels. And intelligence gaps no one explains. Not separate conflicts, connected, balanced. And right at the center of it, Ethan. Not reacting, operating. And before you can act on that realization, your next deployment gets delayed. No explanation, no urgency. And that's when you understand. You're not the only one who's noticed. Level 6. The flag. You already know something is wrong, but this time, you're not the only one. It starts quietly, not a confrontation or accusation, just a delay as your next deployment gets pushed without explanation. And in your experience, that means someone is asking questions. Then the call comes, not from your unit, but routed through Langley oversight. A cold voice, no introduction. Report to debrief. The room is smaller than expected, buried inside a secure wing near Fort Meade, with no windows and no identifiers. 2 officers sit across from you. No rank, no names. They don't ask about the mission. They ask about him, Ethan Cole. How long have you worked together? How often does he break position? Any irregular comms activity? You answer carefully, without lying, but without giving everything, because even now, you're not sure which side you're on. They slide a classified file across the table. Inside, satellite captures, intercepted signals, and movement logs pulled from multiple theaters. Then, one image. Grainy, long range, but clear enough. Ethan, standing with individuals you spent years tracking. The room falls silent. We assess your partner is compromised. Not suspected, confirmed. Then comes the line that changes everything. You were not assigned to him by chance. You don't react, but inside, something shifts, because now you understand. You weren't just working with him. You were being watched the entire time. Level 7. The break. They don't pull you out, and instead they send you back. But by then, the investigation is already in motion, and you can feel it in everything. Then, for the first time in weeks, something normal happens. It's your 7th anniversary, and you and Emily host a small dinner at your residence in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Nothing formal, just a quiet evening to hold on to something real. You invite Ethan. He arrives with his wife, Claire. At first, everything feels normal. Conversation, food, controlled laughter. For a moment, it almost works. But then you notice it. Ethan is off. Subtle, but consistent. He checks his phone too often, barely engages, and his attention drifts like he's somewhere else entirely. Then, mid-conversation, his phone lights up again. This time, he doesn't ignore it. He steps out onto the balcony. You wait a few seconds, then you follow. Through the glass, you see him. Back turned, voice low, controlled. Not casual, not personal. You step closer, and that's when he turns. For a split second, nothing moves. No surprise, no denial. Just recognition. He knows. And in that moment, you know too. No words are exchanged, because none are needed. Then, he moves first. Past you. Fast. Through the apartment, out the door. Gone, before anyone inside understands what just happened. Claire is left standing there. Confused. Silent. The room collapses into questions you don't answer. By morning, the confirmation comes through internal channels routed out of Langley and Fort Meade. No ambiguity, no delay. Ethan Cole is officially flagged. And just like that, everything shifts from suspicion to authorization. Level 8. The Order. The call comes in just after midnight, routed through a secure channel tied to Langley oversight, American soil, with no prior briefing and no room for interpretation. No discussion, no clarification, just one line. Target confirmed, authorization granted. They don't say his name, and they don't need to, because the coordinates resolve to a location just outside Boise, Idaho, in a quiet stretch of forested elevation used for off-grid surveillance operations. You're given everything: exact grid reference, wind profile across the ridge, thermal conditions, and a clean extraction route toward a secondary fallback point. Standard procedure. Except this time, the target isn't unknown. It's Ethan. You move into position before first light, setting up on a rocky overlook above the timberline with clear sight lines across the valley. You check wind drift through tree movement. You confirm range. You map exit routes. Your hands remain steady and your breathing stays controlled, because training holds. But your mind doesn't. Every memory surfaces at once. Training rotations, Iraq Overwatch, Canadian long-range shots, Mexico jungle operations. Every shot you took together, every correction he made, every moment you trusted him without question. And now you're here to end him. Movement. You bring the scope up slowly. And there he is, standing exactly where the intel predicted, positioned near a clearing at the edge of the tree line. Same posture, same stillness, same precision, like nothing ever changed. The crosshair settles naturally. Center mass. Distance, wind, drop, everything aligns perfectly. Your finger rests on the trigger, pressure building slowly, exactly as trained. And then, something shifts. He stops. Not randomly, not uncertainly, deliberately. And then, without hesitation, he turns, not scanning the environment, not reacting to sound, looking directly at your position. Through distance, terrain, and concealment, he finds you. And in that moment, everything becomes clear. He was never hiding. He was waiting for you. Your breathing slows. In, hold, out. Pause. The same pause you learned together, refined across years, built into instinct. And now, it belongs to both of you. The shot is ready, but this time, it isn't about skill or distance or wind. It's about choice. And some choices, once made, don't end when the trigger breaks. They stay, long after the shot is gone.